This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I'm joined today by Damien Lamothe and Daniel Speck. Monsieur Lamothe is joining us all the way from Bordeaux. Meanwhile, Daniel Speck looks like a hotel room in Montreal.
Yeah, for the Grand Degustation de Montreal. It's happening this week.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, I would like to know what it is that brought your two families together to make these wines that are new to us in Ontario, Cab Mystère. I have the white and two reds that we're going to be tasting through, but I would love to know the origin story, how your two families came together to make these wines.
Well, I could be 5 or so years ago, perhaps, maybe a little bit longer. We have my brothers and I have another business besides Henry of Pelham, which is Family Wine Merchants, a boutique wine agency. And Damien came on board as a supplier to us through another friend. He was looking for new opportunities and working with our agent in New York, actually.
I see.
And so, the question was, how do we get more of his Bordeaux wines into Ontario? And what was interesting at the time, the Château Lamothe, which is Damien's wines, which I'm sure you can speak to. I'll leave that for him. We've been in the Ontario market, fabulous wines. But there was this interesting space where I was looking at Bordeaux actually at the time, and I thought it was fascinating how amazingly some of these wines are, and yet how underpriced they were relative to a lot of what comes out of California. And I'm not talking about the first growths, which are effectively another creature. And also, just in chatting with Damien, that in his appellation, which I'll leave that again for him to give you more the SPAC story of Cadillac. But it's a region that, in some perceptions, back in Bordeaux, the wines are too full, they're too big, they're too juicy, they're too luscious, and I just found that so intriguing because over here, the success of California is just that very thing, and people actually pay a premium for that.
Yes.
And the wines are great, right? I mean, who doesn't like good, decent $25, $30 Cabernets out of California? I think J. Laura comes to mind, a fantastic bottle of wine for under $25. And I thought, geez, there's got to be a way to sort of bring that story of Bordeaux to Ontario and without losing the integrity of what Bordeaux is. So that's how it all started.
Excellent. Now, going back to Château Lamothe Haute, Damien, if you could give me a little bit of history about your house. I think you're fourth generation now, looking over the property there.
Yes, we are the fourth generation. It's my wife and me now. It was the grandparents who bought the property in 1956, and then my parents-in-law, they were selling the grapes to the co-op at the time. The grandparents. Then we bought. Then my parents really developed the winemaking and the sales of the wine. And my wife and me arrived in '97. So it's a long time ago now, and we do that. And now we have our children. My daughter is joining us for the winemaking and the work we do. So she is the fourth generation. We are the third generation.
Now, looking at the history of the house, it was getting a bit confusing for me because it was the fourth generation, but the name has changed throughout those generations, right?
Yeah, transmission by women.
Right. The Periquet, I'm not sure in the pronunciation. The
Neil, and Chombart, yeah. And then probably Turin.
Oh,
in the future. It's not done yet, but the announcement is close.
So let's talk about the region itself. Cadillac is not a region that, unless you're au fait with the wines of Bordeaux, it's not a region that's very well known over here. So for those unfamiliar, would you mind explaining a little bit about the region itself?
Yeah, there is, geographically, we are located in Entre-deux-Mers, which is between the two rivers, Dordogne and Garonne rivers. but we are very close to Garonne River, which is on the right bank. And from Bordeaux along to 50 kilometers like that, it's really like a band close to 3 kilometers large only. It's really, because close to that river, it's really on slopes, it's really hilly. And so we have a different appellation than the rest of Notre-de-Mer, a different configuration, I mean, of the soil, of the terroir, than the rest of the Entre-de-Mer, which is quite unique. And we have on the top, close to Entre-de-Mer terroir, good lands as well for the white wine. So we have two sides in our appellation, one good for the red, one good for the white. So
now, around 30 years ago, my first introduction to the wines of Cadillac would have been the sweeter wines from the region.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Cadillac is not for the sweet. We used to make
a
sweet, a sweet wine. But it's a small appellation. Cadillac is quite young as an appellation, even for the sweet. I mean, it's about 40 years age. I mean, something like that. It's like it was very small appellation, like village appellation, and they make a joint venture, if I can say, to create the new appellation Cadillac, but it's very small, and it's inside the appellation of the red appellation Cadillac Côte de Bordeaux.
Yes.
And smaller, but it's really on a sweet wine, sweet side. And 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, in 2009, so about 15 years ago, before it was Première Côte de Bordeaux appellation for the red. We didn't call it at the time Cadillac Côte de Bordeaux. But to make something more easier for the people, they changed the name. It was Première Côte, it became Cadillac Côte de Bordeaux, because Cadillac is the main village inside the appellation. The biggest one. So
I hear you.
That's the story.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the terroir, the soils that you have there, and the soils that you're playing with when it comes to these three wines we're tasting today.
Yeah, we have very, as we are on slopes here, we have very different sides of different sort of soil. Especially on the top, it's more gravel and clay, but really gravel. That's where we put the Cabernet. In the middle, we have is more clay and limestone. And in the bottom, it's really limestone. So we have Cabernet on the top, then Merlot, the red grapes, and on the bottom, the white grapes for a cooler climate, so to keep the freshness and the acidity.
Super. Now, Daniel, a question for you. When you're making a wine, a collaborative wine like this, how does that work? Because you're based most of your time down in Niagara. How many trips does it take to assemble a wine like this?
So the project began with, I made 2 visits to Bordeaux over a period of a year. And then after that, at that time, actually, Damien and I went down into the barrel cellar, which is this very interesting space, by the way, underneath this vineyard. I just sort of detour for a second. There's kilometers of these caves. Some of them originally, there's a prehistoric cave at the entrance, but then later, what people actually dwelled in, that was expanded by later people to mine the limestone out of from underneath the vineyard. I'm talking like way down, and these bricks the size of like a desk were extracted and used to build Bordeaux, the city of Bordeaux. I mean, it's unbelievable to see this thing. And these caves go very, very far back. So Damien, being very frugal, has been using this as a cold cellar to hold barrels, and it's freezing cold there in the middle of the summer. Like I was there in August. It was in August, and it was like 35, almost 40 degrees. It was insane.
I felt that heat.
And I had
Bordeaux,
and I had a puffy vest on just to go into the cellar. It was phenomenal. So, anyways, it was a long way of saying we kind of put together a few ideas of what this wine could be, and tried to come up with a style, kind of like paint a picture of it. What would it be like? And then from there, it was the miracle of DHL. Flying samples back and
seriously,
forth.
that's right. Okay.
Yeah, because I wanted our winemaking team involved. So Lawrence Bueller, our winemaker, and his a whole team. Plus, we have our lab and all the rest of it at our facility in Ontario. So as samples go back and forth and have a discussion around oak and what tweaks we thought made the most sense. And it's had a very nice dialogue. And of course, Damien's such a great collaborator. And I think it just worked very well. And Damien is really, I also just brought some wines over for him to try as well, both from Henry of Pelham and also from some other regions. So this is what we're competing with and what we're going after. So
what kind of similarities can you see in the terroir from the Cab Merlots that you make in Niagara to the wines that we have in front of us today?
Well, I think our Merlot component in our vineyards.
Sorry.
No.
That's my two dogs and my truffle dog, because I have some truffle and this is a season and they're very excited. Sorry for that.
Oh, that's right. It's truffle season. I forgot about that.
Starting.
I'm here in Montreal, and it's on all the menus right now. That makes sense. I totally forgot about that. The heavy clay soils. Our vineyards are mostly heavy clay, so there'll be some similarities and some differences. So I mean that leads to more structure in our Merlot, especially, and our Cabernet too, of course. But the Merlot gets the tannic structure is going to be there, and I think that's one of the interesting attributes of Merlot in Niagara is that it's not just a soft, flabby wine. I think Damien has some structure in his Merlot that's quite interesting as well.
Yeah, no, just to talk about that. I mean, for me, I will not say the opposite. The perfect place for the Merlot, it's Bordeaux. I mean, it's really certainly, and we see it recently, a better grape for the cool climate and not too warm, because it happened in some vintages in the past, like 03 was too warm, and it was not a disaster, but we were not prepared for that. So and it was the consequence was not the best wine at the end. So now we need that weather with very cold nights and warm, of course, warm weather, but not too warm, because at one point we get high alcohol, disbalanced wine, and I think that maybe Daniel found when he came at home, and he saw that in different Bordeaux wines, but. And it's adapted for the consumer that they are looking for as well now, especially in East Coast of America. That's my feeling. That's and the connection because I visited as well. I came to Henry of Pelham and we had a discussion together. Yeah, a few times. Yeah.
I'd be curious as to, with your Bordelaise background, I'd be very curious as to what you thought of the Henry of Pelham wines when you were here.